Welcome to episode 40 of Experience Andy Wines Live. It's our weekly opportunity for me to share my ideals with the world, to share my thoughts. So I thank you for joining me this week, as always. So let's get into it. First thing we always like to do is express gratitude. And today, as I sat back and thought, okay, what am I grateful for? I'm truly grateful to have two great brothers. I have a great relationship with my brothers, and it's something that we really worked on through the years. And over this past week, I've seen my brother Isaac and his art explode. My brother Isaac's a wood artist. He creates these pieces, nostalgic and amazing. And recently he's been recognized by the Weather Channel and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and some other local news stations and got a lot of publicity. And I got talking to my other brother Tyler about it over the weekend, who's a musician. And we see the success Isaac has had. It's really because of the hard work he's put in. And he's also put himself out there. He leans into the vulnerability. And that's something that our parents have really instilled in us, is to not necessarily go with the flow or understand what society wants out of us. I see what Isaac's doing, and Tyler and I talked about his music. For some of you guys who may know this, and for others may not, the song that we kicked this off with is called The Thinking Song, and that's my brother Tyler, his music. And so we're all artists in our own way. I use the written word and the spoken word. Tyler's used music, and Isaac's medium is wood art. And so I'm inspired that I have two other brothers that are growth-minded, that are willing to fail. They're willing to challenge the status quo. They'll live a nomadic lifestyle in the pursuit of excellence versus the people that are fixed-minded and want to punch the clock and enjoy their 2 weeks of vacation a year. So I'm very thankful to be grow up, and now as adults, the three of us brothers can push each other in business and also in our different arts. So that's awesome. I asked this week, a little bit different than normal. I love being on podcasts. I love being a podcast guest more than I love being a host. So me coming here doing Andy Wines Live every week, and immediately following this, I do the Trash Talk Business podcast, and I enjoy them. I like them. However, I love being a guest on a podcast because it allows me to share my ideals with a whole new audience and for me to really lean in and be tested. So if you have a podcast or someone that has a podcast, or you can think of a podcast that would be a really good fit for me, I would love all those introductions. You can go to andywines.com and find all my contact information and send me an introduction, because the more podcasts I get on, the more opportunities I get to impact new audiences. And so that is my ask this week. Very simple. All right, let's talk about your battle cry. So I've been ingrained in battle cries for the last 20 years. In the military, we learn very early in basic training a battle cry. It's somewhere between 3 to 7 words. Sometimes it's as simple as 2 words. It is the thing you say as a unit every time you're called to attention. So the first sergeant comes out, and your platoon sergeants are all there. And the first sergeant comes out, and he goes, "Company!" And the platoon sergeant goes, "Platoon!" And then the first sergeant says, "Attention!" Right? And everyone snaps to attention and yells out the battle cry. So our battle cry before going to Iraq was "too easy." So every day, 10 times a day, every time we're in formation, every time we got called to attention, we yelled "too easy," which is ironic now that I use easy as a shit word that does not serve. However, that's what we were known for. And so then we got downrange in Iraq, and when we were faced with challenges, it was always like, "too easy," right? That was the battle cry. No matter what challenge we faced, the answer always remained the same, because we controlled the situation, did not control us. And so this battle cry was woven into me, and since 2006. And so for the last 18 years, I've carried that battle cry with me. And now in my adult life, most people know my battle cry is "do the fucking thing." That is where I get held up. In the OODA loop, the observe, orient, decide, act decision-making matrix, I get stuck after the decision. I observe, this is the situation. I orient, okay, let me look at it from a new lens. Let me figure out what the priorities are. Make a decision. All right, this is what we're going to do. And then often that's where I get stuck in my life. It's like I make the decision, check it off my list. Cool, I came to the solution to the problem. So then the novelty wears off. And so I've had to tell myself, no, Andy, now it's time to do the fucking thing. And I would say that. And I would say to people, like, "Oh, just do the thing. What's the problem? Like, do the thing." Right? Very casually. And over time, different networking groups and different people would repeat it back to me. You're like, "Oh yeah, you're the guy that does the thing." I'm like, "Yeah, do the thing," whatever it is. And so that became my battle cry in a very organic way. And yet now, when I'm faced with adversity, when I'm stuck in that decision making, when I know that I have the solution and yet I'm not executing, I remind myself who the fuck I am and what I need to do. And I say, "Andy, do the fucking thing." right? My mom, for example, one of her battle cries is control what's in my hula hoop. So my mom has spent years going to Al-Anon, and she's very empathetic. She lets a lot of people come into her life, and she focuses a lot of her energy on other people's lives. And so she's had to learn to say, okay, hold on, not in my hula hoop. So she gets to determine her boundaries, and that's her hula hoop and how she navigates life. And so another thing my mom always also says is, gotta go, right? As soon as the situation becomes emotionally charged or negative, she goes, gotta go. And that's what she tells herself. And she says it out loud. And like when she's retelling stories or we're talking about stuff, and sometimes I'll go to her and I'll complain to her about things happening at work, because I still complain like most people. And she goes, gotta go, gotta get rid of them, gotta fire that vendor, gotta go. And that's her thing, gotta go. It is that simple. And what happens is when you say too easy, do the fucking thing, gotta go, not my hula hoop, right? You automatically take the time to stop and dig into, okay, these are my values, these are my beliefs. No matter what's going on around me, this is my opportunity to say, okay, now I'm back in control. Reminds me of an interview Mike Tyson had recently. And Mike Tyson, he's a studier of war, and he's a warrior, and he's a fighter, and he's all these things. And media has painted him a certain light for the last 40 years. And he had a huge ego, and because he did. And right, when you're the greatest in the world at something, you're probably going to have a big ego. And he got a lot of criticism for it. And he was interviewed, this was only a few years ago now. And they said, okay, Mike, when you get criticized now, you don't blow up like you used to. Why is that? And he reminds me, who the fuck am I? I'm a nobody, right? If they think I'm a nobody, fine, I'm a nobody, right? So he reminds himself, I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody. I'm humble enough to say, yep, maybe I haven't earned it. Maybe I haven't put the work in yet, right? Maybe I am a nobody. And now that's his reminder to say, okay, cool. Their opinion of me, their perspective of me, they can have it. It makes no difference to me. And I have the humility to say, yeah, my ego is not going to get in the way anymore, because who the fuck am I? And so this battle cry has to be this charge, take the hill, cuss everybody up and down on your way, kicking the fucking doors as you go. It can be as simple as, what do you need to tell yourself in those moments to gain back that clarity? We think about our brains often. The reason we need that battle cry is to get us from our lower limbic system, our fight, flight, or freeze brain, our lower lizard brain, into our creative, confident, calm brain that's going to allow us to open up these ideals and explore what other options are available. Allow us to say, okay, here's the situation. The military called an activating event. Here's what's going on around me. Let me stop and let me decide how I think about this. And our thoughts are governed by words. So let me have some pre-programmed words to put in there so that I can intercept these neurotransmitters from going into the fight, flight, or freeze and intercept them. So now we're going into the confident, clear, creative, confident brain, because I'm going to tell myself something. I have this pre-designed. So I have a tenuous relationship with my ex-wife, when we have a child together. And it's been 9 years. In the first 4 or 5 years, it was rough. It was rough for both of us and for our child. And it was expensive for our lawyers. And I was not my best self. And I finally had to convince myself and tell myself, okay, not my monkey, not my circus. Because I kept getting sucked into all the BS. I allowed myself to get sucked into the BS. And then I made a decision one day, you know what? No more phone calls. It's going to be a text message. It's going to be an email. And I will not respond to any email within 24 hours, because I knew I needed that decompression time. I know when I read an email, if I start smashing the keys, it's going to be emotionally charged. And so what I told myself in those moments was, not my monkey, not my circus. And that allowed me that time to then compartmentalize it, because I can go back to the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. I can observe, right? Hey, here's a triggering event. Here's something that will trigger me. Got it. And orient myself. You know what? I'm going to give myself 24 hours. That's the decision I'm making. Some people will say, oh, no decisions are decisions. No, I made a decision. I made a decision to wait until I was no longer in an emotionally heightened state of mind so that I can respond logically. Because there was times I certainly responded. And then I look back at the email that was sent to me, and then my response, I go, oh, yeah, I took that out of context. That's on me. I looked at that all wrong, right? Because a comma here or a period there can change entirely. So instead of asking questions or some clarification, I would lose my shit. And even this weekend, we had a situation. I dropped my daughter off yesterday, and there was a discrepancy between when I would be picking her up next. And my initial thought was not healthy, not good. I'm not even going to repeat it because it doesn't matter. It wasn't consistent with what serves me. So I go, okay, let me just take a look at the email. Let me make sure I am on the same page. I have an assumption of when I'm going to pick my daughter up next. My daughter and I are on the same page. I said it out loud, and now you're telling me I'm wrong. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. And I said, let me just check the email to make sure I'm right. Because I told myself, not right now, not in front of my daughter, not my monkey, not my circus. So I pulled up the email and I go, oh, actually, here, look, here's the email you wrote me, and here's where it was agreed upon. And she goes, oh, I must have been mistaken. Okay, we're good for next week. I had all these thoughts like, she's screwing me over, she's this, she's that. No, we weren't on the same page. And me taking that time to slow down and check the email and show the date sounds very simple. 9 years ago, I didn't do it. 8 years ago, 7 years ago, hell, probably 5 years ago, I would have not showed up as my best self in such a simple situation. You might think to yourself, what's the big deal, guy? Pull up the email, verify the dates, move on. And yet, I failed at that for years. My question to you now, the first step in self-reflection. What are times where you don't show up as your best self? When do you fail to meet your own standards? When do you allow others to break your boundaries and you let them in, even when they've broken your boundaries? When do you break your own boundaries? Think back to those times. Now, awareness, where did you want to happen? What was the expectation you did have for yourself? And then what words do you need to tell yourself so that when you are faced with this activating event the next time, because there will be a next time, you have a default fighting position, we'll call it. That's the battle cry. This is my default fighting position. No matter what happens, this is where I go back to. What are the words you need to tell yourself to remind yourself of your long-term goals, your plans, the way you want to be perceived by the world, or the way you want to show up to the world? Who cares a shit about perception? Well, maybe somebody here. Certainly not me, right? What are those words you have to tell yourself? And make it short. This is not a dissertation, right? 3 to 7 words to say, yep, this is where I'm going. Not today. Ain't nobody got time for that. Whatever it is. And also preload yourself in more positive nature, right? It's very simple to look back and reflect on times you didn't show up your best self. And as you're reflecting, think back to times when you did show up as your best self. What did you do to be that best self? What did you tell yourself, right? It might be as simple as a little pep talk. You don't need the full 10 minutes in front of the mirror, ugly cry, right? It is all right, you got this. And these battle cries are no different than affirmations. Mel Robbins talks about giving yourself a high five, telling yourself you love yourself every morning in the mirror, right? It's that simple affirmation that you got this. I know my daughter, for example, she is notorious for saying, Dad, I got this. That's her, I got this. And then I step back and I watch her, and sometimes she does have that, and sometimes she does fail. And at that moment, though, she's telling herself, I got this. I'll figure it out. Because that same little girl last week, I took her rock climbing, and she said, Dad, I don't know what to do. And she climbed up, no harness, like 10, 12 feet up in the squishy floor so you can fall and you're fine. And yet she panicked. She climbed up there. I was very proud of her. She climbed up on this wall and then she freaked out. She had a full meltdown. So I said, hey, count to 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said, you got this. Come on, baby girl, you got this. And she goes, no, Dad, I don't. I said, you got up there. You can get down. You got this. And after about 30 seconds and 15, 20 people watching, she calmed herself down. She got her breathing under control. I told her where to put her foot. The first 2 times I told her where to put her foot, of course, she pushed me back. Dad, I can't reach. Okay, put your right foot here, left foot there. Do the hokey pokey, get yourself down, right? And she got down 4 feet. So now the fall was only like 4 or 5 feet. And she got there and she fell down. And I was so proud of her in that moment because she took on a challenge that was beyond her capabilities and she got herself stuck. And then she was able to get herself unstuck. And she was really frustrated afterwards. I told her how proud I was of that moment. And then the rest of the day when we went climbing, she goes, I got this. And then she'd go scurry up the wall. I got this. Scurry up the wall. Right? And she was in a harness and it's okay if you fall. That's part of life. And yet I got this mindset that she has so often. As soon as she reminded herself who she was and why she was there, she was successful versus that 2 minutes of the entire day where she felt like she failed. So this week, make it very simple on yourself. Look at your goals. Look at your aspirations and where you want to go in life. Think back, reflect back on times when you did and you did not show up as your best self. Look at the difference of what headspace you were in and come up with your own battle cry. I would love to hear what it is. I gave you some examples of the army and from my mom and myself, right? I want to hear what everybody's battle cry is. Because that battle cry you give yourself, someone else may procure, steal, use when they're in those moments of darkness or in the verge of those moments of greatness. So if you could, it doesn't matter what I often do or don't do, I want to hear your feedback. What are the battle cries you tell yourself? Be vulnerable. Share it with me. If you want to share it in the open forum on LinkedIn or Facebook, if not, shoot me an email. I will not share your information, your name. I want to hear what those battle cries are that you tell yourself when you're in those moments, because that can be the difference will be the difference between you going from where you are to where you want to be. And that might be the words or the difference that other people need in this world. As I come out every week and create new content and put myself out there, I challenge my audience now to start contributing to all the good things that we're doing within this small community so that we can collaborate to make the world a better place. My goal in this life is very simple. It is to change the world one word at a time. And I'm asking for your words. As always, this week and next week and every week in your life, get out there, do the fucking thing, tell the fucking world, show the fuck up, and we'll see you next week.